Hello, this is week 3 of the 13-week fiscal program for American Prisoners of War. We have myself, Chief Biko. Today we have Chief Alligator, as well as Chief Quietwater. And here, as always, we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. And today we'll have Chief Alligator start with the 12 steps.
Chief
Or I'll
Quiet.
do,
Actually,
yeah, I'll
Chief
do the,
Quiet. Chief
Okay.
Quiet, 12 steps.
okay, so I'll do the 12 steps. Number 1, learn about the estate or estates your family originated from. Number 2, who established that estate. Number 3, what tribe and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the Europeans. Number 4, ask all nonprofit organizations you attend, what's their position on reparations. Number 5, they either support it or they don't. No support, no money. However, if they support it, then children and adults need weekly classes free of charge about steps 1, 2, and 3, in addition to field trips to APOW landmarks in that city, county, and state are needed. Number 6, don't support European holidays for the remainder of the 13-week time frame. Number 7, avoid spending money with any small business that doesn't hire your people, gas stations, nail salons, subways, corner stores. Number 8, all businesses need operating cash, spending money with American businesses. Number 9, all other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive. Set the trends of making other groups follow our lead and support our clubs, services, and products and entertainment. Number 10, the US government is bankrupt. The Federal Reserve prints money, i.e. quantitative easing. It also burns money, i.e. quantitative tightening. The US dollar hasn't been backed by gold since Richard Nixon in 1971, the Gold Standard Act. The government operates off full faith of its citizens to pay debts and taxes. American prisoners of war no longer have faith in the US government. This is why financial support will be altered, stopped, and redirected. Number 11, teach your kids 1 hour a day about their history on this land. A, have them learn about an American inventor. B, have them know about our heroes. C, they should know the European that conquered the estate they live in. And D, they should know the nation of people prior to the European invasion, militarily and culturally. And then number 12, practicing these steps will educate us on the land we're claiming America and attaches us to the history and laws of the United States government. Every estate American prisoner of war live in should have steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised via social media, radio, and newspaper. This in 13 weeks, 1 fiscal quarter, will bring us together for our common cause. Does any of those stand out to you guys this week?
I would say definitely number 10, and kind of like how we spoke on last week. I wasn't able to actually show the actual gold and silver, but I am able to do it this week. So just to, again, just show kind of proof of claim. I'm not sure if it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, you can see right there.
So again,
Cool.
identifying, what actual money is constitutionally. Again, 1971 Gold Standard Act, the actual money was taken out of the system. So just understanding, the difference between what we as I guess a group would say what money is and what actual constitutional money is, just understanding that difference and making sure we're all in alignment in regards to that understanding. So that's definitely what stood out to me this week.
Chief Quietwater, what about you?
I would say number 12, just the fact that we do this every single week. So we definitely practice this every single week because we are pretty much advertising on social media via YouTube, and we have our Instagram page. So I think that we definitely have proven that we are doing this on a continuous basis.
I would say step 3 today. What nation and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the European? Just keep going back to that. We have to understand that confederacies was a form of government on this land. And I think once we really get grounded in that reality, we'll start to understand how they reconstructed or just lied about everything that happened from 1860 to 1965.
Great point, great points, and great observations from, of course, the 12 steps from what we, kind of identified with this past week. I'll go ahead and start with this week's inventor. This week's inventor is Henry Blair. I'm going to share my screen to show his actual invention. Henry Blair, first, can you all see?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Henry Blair was born in Glen Ross, Maryland. Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. So again, his Henry Blair, yes, he was born in Glen Ross, Maryland in 1807, passed away in 1860. He is responsible for 2 patents, his first being the corn planter, which is being displayed on the screen here. Basically what that did was pretty much made lanes within the ground, and then there was a device that would actually release the seeds into those new tracts of land in which this device here had made. So just making it easier for seeds and crops to be planted. So it's kind of, I guess, like a common trend we're seeing, I guess, from the last 3 inventors, definitely seeing that, agricultural innovation, being able to, create this abundance of product through, this ingenuity from our people. So he had the seed planter here. It was patented in October 4th or on October 4th, 1834. And the patent number is 8447X. So that's 8447X. And what kind of stood out to me was that they said that he was the first American. Of course, they use African American, but we know he was American. He was the first American to be identified on a U.S. patent application as Black. This had never been done. It was unusual to have, to be identified as far as your race in regards to U.S. patents. So that was something that really stood out to me in regards to this person here. Correct. 1834. As far as this industry, similar to or pretty much likewise, like the other inventors, have no residual income coming off this industry or this patent here. All right. So next we will have Chief Alligator with the quote for today.
All right, I'm going to do quote 6 from Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the founder of what we know as Black History Month. Number 6 says, leadership is usually superimposed for the purpose of directing the course of the ostracized group along same lines. This was accomplished during the days of slavery, which we now know as prisoner of war camps, by restricting the assembly of Negroes to certain times and places and compelling them to meet in the presence of a stipulated number of the wisest and discreetest men of the community. These supervisors of the conduct of Negroes would prevent them from learning the truth, which might make them unruly or ambitious to become free. And I chose that quote this week with the slave patrol killing another person, and they publicized it this past Wednesday, where the officer basically shot this man in the back of the head, point blank range. And for the rest of my life, I'm always had the position that after George Floyd, the fact that we never continued resistance to get anything done, it would only get worse for us as a group of people. And number 6 sticks out to me particularly because if you look at the way that they've programmed this group since 2020, now when violent acts of crimes happen, they've trained our group to protest peacefully. And that lines with number 6. You get your Black Lives Matter, you get a couple of nonprofit organization leaders who we've never heard of, you get the Attorney Crump, they all swoop down on the city where the execution or the violence took place, and then they get those people to just walk around in a circle peacefully for a couple of hours, put them on a curfew, and then make them go back home. Nobody ever talks about being prisoners of war and how this pattern goes all the way back. For me, Mike Brown, being somebody that was actually in DC, feet on the ground, when Black Lives Matter even got started was because of Mike Brown. And to see where it's now, how it's transformed since Mike Brown to where it is now, watching this group be being beaten down mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Well, now murders don't even trigger this group anymore. They've got you so indoctrinated where you'll just peacefully protest after violent murders. The two don't even go together.
Great quote for this week. And like you said, it just speaks volumes of, like you just said, the recent news in regards to that. So again, people, prisoners of war. And the only way to actually get up out of this will be to fight back. So as Chief Alligator stated, walking around in circles is not going to get you the results that you are looking for. It hasn't gotten us the results we've been searching for. So it's time we try a different game plan, because this play obviously isn't working. Next, we will have, well, were you also doing the maroon historical points and legal definitions, Chief Alligator?
Yeah, Chief Quietwater, you wanted to say anything on that?
I agree with both of you guys. It's just that it's just a desensitization process, basically. It just don't pull any strings for us anymore with all the killings and everything. So I definitely agree.
You have the most current legal definitions and maroon points you could pull up?
Yeah, give me one moment, I'll pull those up real quick.
I'll do the maroon points while you're pulling that up. 5 historical maroon points. Number 1 was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. And number 5, maroons knew their European enemies' language, defense, and plans. And legal definitions: number 1, American, indigenous to America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, person, usually a soldier who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. 5th, school, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. 6, education, and enlightening experience.
All right. Thank you there, Chief Alligator. And last but not least, we will jump into the Constitution for those readings as well, starting with Section 1, Article 1, rather, Section 10. And this just coincides with number 10 in our 12 steps in regards to what actual money is. So Section 10 reads, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So again, just kind of piggybacking off of the 12 steps in number 10, there is no money within this US government. So it kind of just even further highlights why we even want to walk around in circles and, as Chief Alligator alluded to, peacefully protest for something that has no value for us or gives no value for us. We get no protection in as far as, any type of resources that you basically be considered resources as far as this, fiat currency is backed by nothing. So we're basically, just being murdered, cold-blooded, and without having any type of, no reason for us to even be allowing this to happen, period. It's not like, oh, we need these resources or anything. It's saying clearly here within its constitution that gold and silver is the only thing payable for debt. So why are we paying these taxes to these people who are committing these murders, these people being, i.e. the police, this government through, Jim Crow laws, segregation, et cetera, all of this through, being prisoners of war and being military occupied for something that is worthless, that just absolutely contradicts its own backbone in its constitution. So just highlights, the sickness that we're currently dealing with mentally by continuing to, play these games with this government. I'll go ahead and jump into Article 6. And Article 6 reads that this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So again, just highlighting that the treaty is the supreme law of the land. Again, this is written in this government's backbone, in which this government was founded upon, being the Constitution. And we read, treaties, and we're reading treaties like we're doing now with the 1866 Indian Treaty, that they don't even abide by their own treaties that they set. So not only do they contradict themselves in regards to their currency and their form of money, but they also just contradict themselves in regards to their law of the land that they have, implemented. So again, why are we playing these games with this fictitious government that is not even native to this land? Just further proving again that military occupation, as well as that brainwashing technique. Last but not least, we will read Article 2, Section 2, which states the president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of several states. So again, not only does the commander-in-chief or the president has the authority to rule over the Army and Navy, but also the militia of several states. We highlighted before how Georgia is broken down into militia districts. And Georgia isn't the only state that has militias. If that was the case, it would just say the militia of Georgia, but as it states here, several states. So we know that there are multiple states that have the same type of breakdown in regards to their militias and how they can be activated. So again, just showing another clear depiction of military occupation, but also the powers that the president holds as that commander-in-chief title, or with that commander-in-chief title. Right. And last week we left off in Section 5 of Article 8. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll jump into it. So Section 5 here. Okay. Did anybody want to start us off this week? Well, I can go ahead.
I'll jump it off. Section 5. This section, just to frame it, is going to be talking about structure and the power of the secretary in any organization. Section 5. Said council shall be presided over by the superintendent of Indian affairs, or in case of his absence from any cause, the duties of the superintendent enumerated in this article shall be performed by such person as the Secretary of the Interior shall indicate. So we got two different positions here. You got the superintendent of Indian affairs, and if the superintendent cannot be present in the business meeting, then the Secretary of the Interior shall appoint a person. All right, so if you put it on paper, the Superintendent of Indian Affairs, and then draw an arrow down, up under that Superintendent of Indian Affairs would be the Secretary of the Interior. You would think that the Superintendent of Indian Affairs would have an assistant, and that person would have somebody, to show up in place of them. But no, they're giving that responsibility to the Secretary of the Interior. That's important because that's two different governments. The Secretary of the Interior comes out of the United States government. That's the first thing that jumps out. So you've got a whole nother government responsible for the notes or the records in any business meeting under your nation or under your Bureau of American Affairs, Superintendent of Indian Affairs. So all of your affairs, you got a whole nother government, the United States government, looking at those minutes. The second thing is, we don't have this organization as quote unquote prisoners of war, AKA Black people, colored, Negro, Afro-American, whatever you want to call us. Who is our superintendent? Is the question that I would ask everybody that's watching this in the beginning, just to show how defeated we are as a group of people. We don't have a superintendent of Black affairs, if we're going to use that term.
Right.
And also, you want to see the power of the secretary in any organization. Anytime there's a group of people that's organized, the two most powerful positions are the secretary and the treasurer. Everybody else is just figureheads. The president of the United States is just a figurehead. The preacher of a church is just a figurehead. The backbone of any organization is the person who takes the minutes and the person who accounts for the money. We don't have that as a group of people.
And again, we have entertainers, preachers, everyone who has no clue about how to actually run an organization or organize anything. That's who we look up to and allow to be our leaders. And even with the Congressional Black Caucus, yeah, they have those positions in place, but they're not doing what they're supposed to do, holding those positions basically over so-called the Black people or the real Americans.
What kind of really stood out to me just from this this section here was the presided upon. So basically, again, showing that authority over, which is supposed to be a whole separate nation in itself. So like you're saying, they're still coming up underneath that umbrella, or they're still showing that United States government has authority over these nations by, implementing or putting this superintendent over the council, which would be those head men or those chiefs of these different nations and tribes. So again, just basically saying that we still are over you. We already showed it within the land. We've already showed it in regards to, what we can do and what you can do on this land. But now we're showing it also that we'll have, a figurehead in place to make sure that, whatever is decided upon still has to go through our legislation or our authority, basically.
All right, so I'm gonna move down to section 6. The Secretary of the Interior shall appoint a secretary of said council. Again, the Secretary of Interior is up under the Superintendent of Indian Affairs. So that's a fancy way of saying the United States government is going to appoint a secretary for that council. That's a spy. Because if I'm sitting in your business meeting and I'm hearing everything that y'all talking about and voting on, I get a copy of those minutes. So I know exactly what happened. Whose duty it shall be to keep an accurate record of all the proceedings of said council and to transmit a true copy thereof, duly certified by the Superintendent of Indian Affairs to the Secretary of the Interior immediately after the sessions of the said council shall terminate. So yeah, so the only thing that the superintendent is going to do is duly certify it. And as they say, immediately after the session, so immediate after the business meeting, the United States government saying we need a copy of those records. And we're going to get it from the secretary that we appointed through our Secretary of the Interior. And we should have the definition in the chat just to remind everybody what the Secretary of Interior responsibilities are so they can have an understanding. Chief Quietwater, you want to read that? You're on mute.
Where is that at?
I put it in the chat. It should be the top.
I don't see it.
You don't see it?
You said the duties of the secretary.
I'll read it. Secretary of the Interior, the Secretary and the Department of the Interior are responsible for the management and conservation of most federal land, along with natural resources. Leading such agencies as the Bureau of Land Management, the United States Geology Survey, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the National Park Services. So the Secretary of Interior is responsible for all of the natural resources coming out that land and over this Bureau of Indian Affairs. So they're accounting for all the money, all the wealth coming out the land. It's going to come through that Secretary of the Interior.
Can you put that in the chat when you get a chance?
I had it in. Maybe because he's sharing his screen, we can't see the chat. Can you click on chat at the bottom on your computer and it should populate?
I'm not seeing it either.
Okay, I'm not.
Yeah. I see the chat actual box, but it's not within the chat here.
Okay, I don't know what happened. It says to everyone. All right, I'll finish reading this section and then I'll jump on that. Okay, so where am I? Okay. All right, so Interior immediately after the sessions of said council shall terminate. Now, he shall be paid $500 as an annual salary by the United States. That's key because the United States government is acting as treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
So we see the United States government has implanted their own secretary, and then the United States government is acting as treasurer for anything that this Bureau of Indian Affairs does. So if they're controlling the resources of this secretary's annual salary, then basically the United States government is running the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Anything y'all want to say on that?
No, it's pretty clear. I don't have anything to say.
I would say yes. It's again, they just listing or just showing how they infiltrate a whole nation. Again, it just contradicts. Again, it's just a big contradiction in how beginning this treaty, they stated that, you know, whatever laws and however you want to run your government, will do that as long as it doesn't, you know, contradict or, you know, go against what we have established in the Constitution. But now we can see them actually, you know, enforcing their own rules and their own people within their government to, like you said, keep an eye on them, keep tabs on them, or in this case, if that secretary wanted to type up something regarding, you know, the Indian nations want to revoke, then now superintendent certifies that, okay, we got word, they're planning something, let's go ahead and wipe them out, something like that. So again, just showing a lot of ways that, you know, these nations pretty much got destroyed from within by allowing these different figureheads within their government.
I'll do this last one, section 7, because we're getting into the Treasury side. So we've already seen they co-opted the secretary position in 5 and 6. So 7, we're going to get into how they co-opted via the Treasury. The members of the said council shall be paid by the United States $4 per diem while in actual attendance thereon. So per diem just means, like it says, anytime these people within this Bureau of Indian Affairs show up to a meeting, they know they're getting $4. and $4 mileage for every 20 miles going and returning therefrom by the most direct route. That's accounting. Basically, they're saying, hey, you're not going to go all the way around the world to get to the next place. Like, why are you going all the way around? You know, no, you're going to take the shortest distance possible because they've already pre-planned a route that they know that they should be on. And they've already broken it down that you'll get $4 per 20 miles. To be certified by the Secretary of said council and the presiding officer. So again, I'm posing the question back to our group. We don't have this structure as a group of people. There's no, and Chief Quiet would have brought it up, the Black Congressional Caucus, really, that's the back row on our chessboard. But we don't have this amongst our people. There's no place where we can go and we have a meeting and we have our own agendas spelled out. And these people are, you know, taken care of as far as the gas and time that it takes them to get to and from that meeting. You know, these are basic things that any organized group of people do. We don't have that. So it just really just shows how broken we are right now. And I know they're coming up to another election the end of this year. But again, your Black Congressional Caucus hasn't came out in front of quote unquote Black people and said what the agenda is. Okay, what do you, that means you're not forecasting. That means you're not looking down the road at the end of the year saying, okay, my people didn't get the George Floyd Act. My people want to get this HR 40 thing, you know, about studying reparations on the federal level. We need to go a step further and study it and actually start, you know, putting some financial resources in these people's hands. You funded Ukrainians who aren't citizens. You funded Afghanistans who aren't citizens. You know, you hurry up and got the Asian hate crime bill after one bad day of murders. Yet we've been walking around in circles since Mike Brown. You're not hearing them come out. So it just shows how broken we are. Y'all want to build on that? It's kind of fucked up when you really think about it.
No, it definitely is. It definitely is. And like you said, just the lack of accountability, just in regards to, again, I'm reading this. This is business 101. Look, $4 a day. And look, we're going to pay you $4, you know, mileage. So we've already, like you said, we've already mapped out the route that should be taken. So don't be drifting off. Don't, you know, say you got caught up in some type of
Atlanta traffic.
Yeah, or anything like that. Exactly. Atlanta traffic. We talking about 18. don't say you got stuck behind, you know, some cattle or something like that. We know exactly what's going on, because so it just shows the detail that they put behind it for them to even understand, okay, this is how it should be broken down. Anybody outside of that, you're gonna need to be spoken to, because we've already accounted for everything. You going outside of the budget. We're not playing that. So again, just show like that's the total opposite of our group, especially like you said, the Congressional Black Caucus. Hell, we don't even hear from these people. The only time we may hear from them is during, again, an election. So, and then at that stage, like you said, there's no forecasting, there's no, you know, setting plans in motion, no benchmarks, no type of goal setting for our group. So we'll continue to, again, just like the protests, go round in circles and never get off an exit or never actually get off of that track. Basically like a hamster in a hamster wheel. Just turning around, but no progress.
And even like with the Black Lives Matter thing, you know, it was supposed to be for us, but that agenda, it was an actual agenda. It wasn't a planned out thing with an end expectation. It was literally an agenda to get what they wanted and get what they needed and push their thoughts on the whole movement of protecting, you know, Black young men from getting murdered. And it's been twisted, it's been infiltrated, and it's just horrible because, again, we are just left out here with nothing for us, nothing to move us forward in a positive direction.
Let me ask you something, Chief Quietwater, when you said that, when you brought up Black Lives Matter. So, of course, they was in the news a couple of weeks ago about misappropriation of funds. That's a term that directly points to the treasurer of that organization. The question I'm gonna ask both of y'all is, should the president of Black Lives Matter be speaking, or should the secretary and treasurer of that organization be speaking?
The secretary and treasurer, the ones who know exactly where the money went.
And so you see how we're so dumbed down to being organized. They've got a former president who's no longer even a part of
Oh, wow.
That's the person that's been speaking on Black Lives Matter's behalf. And it goes over most of our group's head that haven't been exposed to structure.
Mm-hmm.
How can you be the former president? You're no longer part of that organization, but you're speaking on behalf of the organization. No, the treasurer and the secretary run that organization. They need to be the ones answering the questions about the business minutes,
Mm-hmm.
who voted for y'all to purchase $1 million home, but all these families of people that were murdered, what percentage of that money did they get? That's the only question you really got to ask Black Lives Matter. What percentage of the donations that y'all received went to the families that lost people?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to say 0.00%.
Facts.
Mhm.
They running us backwards and forth, and this is what makes us niggas. That's why these articles or this section in this treaty is important for us to really just look at the harsh truth of how far. This is what makes us niggas.
Yeah.
Unorganized.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to pick up?
I will. Where we at on 8?
Yep.
Okay, the Choctaw and Chickasaw also agree that a court or courts may be established in said territory with such jurisdiction and organization as Congress may prescribe. So basically the Choctaw and Chickasaw are given the Congress the authority to basically establish the jurisdiction and organization, I guess, provided that the same shall not interfere with the local judiciary of either of said nations. So basically they're saying that that a court or courts may establish a as long as it doesn't conflict with the local with the nations, I guess, correct? Am I reading that right?
What you're reading is the Congress is a part of the United States government. The Choctaw and Chickasaw nations don't have a Congress.
Right.
You got a separate nation's legislature dictating where your courts,
which is very confusing now that I just read that out loud.
Right. Yeah, you're not even a nation. You're only a nation in name. These people in your pocket, from a secretary with the minutes, with the treasurer, and you got a whole other government telling you where your courts can be.
Wow. Okay. Makes sense now. That just clicked for me. Whenever Congress shall authorize the appointment of a delegate from said territory, it shall be the province of said council to elect one from among the nations represented in each council. So basically they're taking their power away from them, from a whole nother entity. They're losing control basically, right? Okay. And it is further agreed that the superintendent of Indian Affairs shall, can you go up just a little? And it is further agreed that the superintendent of Indian Affairs shall be the executive of the said territory, which again, basically taking their power away, with the title of governor of the territory of Oklahoma, and that there shall be a secretary of that said territory. So they're just basically setting up their structure within that nation.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a step further and just revert back to the Seminole Wars real quick. This is why our ancestors never contracted with these people. And I could be wrong, but I'm just gonna throw this at the wall. That Asian looking person that we always see through TV, which is not real, that we think, or what they say is a Native American. Reading this document, it looks like they brought refugees from Asia, put them in Oklahoma, and basically dictated terms and conditions to them, because again, you're not going to be an owner or chief of a nation and let another nation dictate like this. The only way you take these terms is you've never ran nothing before. So I'm throwing that out there because we're further along now with these American inventors. We've never seen an Asian mongoloid looking inventor. But TV will tell you that these are Americans. If they're Americans, then why aren't we following their lead? Why aren't why aren't they inventing these industries? These people ain't American.
Correct.
That Asian looking long haired person, I'm going on the record and saying it. We ain't found an inventor yet that look like that. The motherfuckers not from here. They from Asia.
Correct. I think that's probably even why
Europe, Russia, that's a part of the continent of what? Asia. So when they came over here on boats, I believe they brought some of them Asian looking mongoloids, did fake treaties with them, and put that in Oklahoma.
Because the territory of Oklahoma has not always been stated throughout these documents that we've read. The territory of Oklahoma really just kind of started being mentioned, right? Within the last few documents that we read.
No, this goes back to the first treaties. Remember
the territory of Oklahoma?
Not that
verbiage. Indian territory.
Well, okay, got you, okay.
But all these nations were originally in the Creek Confederacy, South.
Right.
So we didn't leave because we fighting Seminole wars.
Right.
So how did they set those 5 nations up that they call 5 civilized tribes? How did they move them to Oklahoma? You see what I'm saying? And if we pull up one of their websites, if one of y'all can pull up the Chief Pico, if you can pull up one of those 5 civilized tribes website, it was established after the American Removal Act.
Correct.
Okay, right.
Some foreigners over there and just said that they're going to be the American. Meanwhile, they fighting a whole war over here in the Southeast region with our people.
Right. Wow. It gets very deep. Okay.
What's your thought on that? I mean, I just want, does that idea sound crazy? That this Asian mongoloid looking person is not really indigenous to this land?
I mean, that's plausible for sure.
What if they invented? I mean, if they from the land, they can't hold claim to nothing. They didn't invent nothing. We haven't seen nothing that these people invented that got that Asian looking look to them that's out there on these reservations.
Right. I agree. I definitely agree.
What do you think, Chief Pico?
They're definitely refugees. Refugees that, again, like you said, they probably just brought them from the continent of Asia, where it was on those, ships with these Europeans and things of that nature. And like I said, okay, we're going to, take over this land. We're going to give you all a space within this land. Now we'll have to contract it because you'll be supplanting these people that we said have moved now west of the Mississippi through the American Removal Act. So yeah, definitely a 3-dimensional chess, I guess you could say, of how, okay, we'll move, or we'll say we're moving a lot of these people from this, the Creek Confederacy, these nations within that, to this Indian territory. But also while we're doing that, we're still fighting them. We're still killing off whoever is in this territory, but you all will be taking their identity. So what we're going to call them now is Native American, because I even see a lot of stuff like in regards to that, this Native American, but they look nothing like us.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? We're the true Americans, but this, again, like you said, mongoloid featured person who hasn't created anything. I think when we looked it up, they created what, a kayak? If anything. So it's like, hey, how are these people, how is this the richest land in the world, but we can't, lay claim to any inventor that established anything. Yet these are the people that created the richest land on this world, or in the world, on this planet. So it doesn't make sense when we're seeing every week we're reading off an inventor that looks like us, an American inventor who's creating industry, actually changing the course of history. And we still see it today. We're the movers and shakers of this whole thing.
Right.
But you don't see anybody that looks like, this Pocahontas character that Disney portrays, or anybody like that that's creating these industries or making, things shake like that. So it just, again, is a valid question to ask. Who are these people that they've portrayed as this Native American, quote unquote. And I just looked up the
simpler, man. Just ask them where you at. Where you
where you at in history?
American, where you at? Because we built Washington, D.C.
Look,
We
we can
created
go.
all these industries. If you're supposed to be the American, where y'all at? What you do?
Right.
Show us your work where you invented something. We ain't got to make this shit hard.
Exactly. It's a shallow grave. We can go back to Tulsa. I thought they called that what? Black Wall Street, right?
Right.
If you know what I'm saying, hold up, who the fuck is? Oh, okay. So you guys wasn't doing nothing. I mean, we already told. I guess we can kind of recall back from my I want to say like late August or maybe September video when I, actually anecdotally saw what looked like nothing on these reservations when I was passing through. So
Oh yeah, right.
just taking that and saying, damn, I thought these was, inventors and creators, but
That's crazy. Just to see things now that you have the knowledge to actually see things and tear things apart as we gain more knowledge is just crazy. But like you said, just seeing what has been depicted and told to us all of these years and to see it with your own eyes is two different things.
Two different things. They aren't creating anything. And that just kind of like, finally registered to me. Yeah, I passed through Oklahoma. The reservations, it wasn't no skyscrapers. It wasn't no major industries. So again, we're showing what we have as far as our creators. When I talk about we, a family that never moved west of the Mississippi, we're showing that. So it's like, who are these people that's pretending to be us as well? That's pretending to be these original people. And yeah, just to kind of answer your question in regards to, when this nation was established or one of these quote unquote 5 civilized tribes were established, I have Choctaw Nation, September 27, 1830. And that's the same exact year of the American or quote unquote Indian Removal Act. So if this is a nation established prior, then that date should be way further back. So again, it just shows once they got here, okay, this is going to be your established date. That's probably the day they actually arrived in that quote unquote Indian territory and started contracting with these mongoloid looking people or bringing in these Asians to mix breed and things of that nature. Because in this treaty or in this, this document, this treaty, we already see that amalgamation factor taking place. We got refugees from the quote unquote Confederate states, the fake Confederate states. We have African descent people. We have now Choctaw Chickasaw Nation people. And we also have some Americans. So we already seeing, the amalgamation and, creation of this new group of people, this hybrid, I guess you could say. Where do we stop off?
Okay, let me see. Secretary. Hold on, let me see here. Let me just start back. I'll just start back with 10, just start over with 10. And it is further agreed that the superintendent of Indian Affairs shall be the executive of said territory with the title of governor of the territory of Oklahoma, and that there shall be a secretary of that said territory to be appointed by the said superintendent. That the duty of the said governor, in addition to those already imposed on the superintendent of Indian Affairs, shall be such as properly belong to an executive officer charged with the execution of the laws.
All right, stop right there. Because you just read a lot right there in that first part of section 10.
I had already read that. Let me see. So
they flipped it. They just flipped it.
Okay.
And it is further agreed that the superintendent of Indian Affairs shall be the governor of the territory of Oklahoma, and that there should be a secretary of that said territory to be appointed by the said superintendent. When I started in section 5, it was the opposite. United States government through the Secretary of Interior was appointing the secretary. Now they're allowing the secretary of the Indian
Affairs.
Right. You're going to be called governor.
Okay.
And we're going to allow you to get your own secretary as governor.
And start imposing laws. right?
Right. But when it comes to the resources and everything that I started in Section 5, oh no, the United States government's going to appoint their own secretary and they're going to be treasurer over that.
Got you. Okay.
So the most important thing that they should have control over, Choctaw and Chickasaw, is the money.
Right.
Resources. They've given that to the United States government in Section 5, and they're saying, okay, you can govern the state. Again, it's almost like you could be the preacher of the church, but you ain't gonna control that collection plate.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Which the said council is authorized to enact under the provisions of this treaty, and that for this purpose, he shall have authority to appoint a marshal of said territory and an interpreter, which there's always an interpreter, the said marshal to appoint such deputies to be paid by fees. So they're basically imposing fees, and that's the way for them to generate money, I'm sure, as may be required to aid him in the execution of his proper functions and be the marshal of the principal court of said territory that may be established under the provisions of this treaty. So they're basically setting up their government the way that they want it to be. They're establishing their government within the nations the way that they want it structured, imposing laws, imposing fees and things of that nature.
Let me ask a question. Doesn't this read eerily to the Civil Rights Act of 1866?
Yeah.
This last portion here, it reads eerily similar. So we already saw, in that act, how the marshals and deputies, they would get paid. That would be brought to this
right,
that nature. So again, we're seeing the modern day policy enforcers, aka police, getting paid
There's
off.
a slight difference though.
Go ahead.
All right. We know Congress is going to dictate where their courts are going to be set up. We just read that in the previous section. The United States government's Congress is going to dictate where their courts are set up. But the 1866 Civil Rights Act that you're referring to, those officers were salary along with the clerks and along with the bailiffs. And what Chief Quietwater just said, it says to be paid by fees. That means they're in sales. They're not on salary. If you don't go out there and charge people, you ain't eating.
Basically bounty hunters. That's what it kind of reads like to me, because they ain't getting no annual fee. They hunting for whoever the hell they need to hunt for to get paid.
Right.
So you can kind of see that bounty hunter wild west in this treaty.
So the European peasant that rebelled, he was salaried under the 1866 Civil Rights Act, along with the clerk and everything, but they set up their court system, the United States government.
Correct. Underneath this
Choctaw Chickasaw, they're saying your marshals and whatever deputies you appoint under them, they didn't say nothing about salary. At this point, it didn't. It say, no, you to be paid by fees, which goes to your modern day police. They're on commission. If they don't write X amount of tickets per month, and that's a wide known thing. You on a quota.
Yeah. Gotta make sales. Damn, okay. You see, you want to start into 11 or stop right there, and then of course go ahead and shine light on our favorite people, the Congressional Black Caucus, because we got 4 minutes till 8. So we can stop right there and pick up on number 11 next week then. But definitely 1, 2. I guess this would kind of just go back to what we was saying about or discussing earlier, as far as, the lack of planning, the lack of details, the lack of accounting in regards to pretty much our group, or who's supposed to be our leadership within this group. We always say, it just goes back to what they are supposed to be actually fighting for. Let me see, I think it's right there. Yeah. So we could just see the very broad objectives and agenda that, you know, our Congressional Black Caucus is supposed to be having for our group of people. Is nothing, you know, specific. It's nothing time sensitive, you know, nothing measurable. Basically anything, it would be called a SMART goal. You know, it's nothing specific, measurable. You know, can it be, you know, accounted for? Is it attainable? Things of that nature. Everything is pretty broad. Reforming criminal justice and eliminating barriers to reentry. How do we measure that? Did they specifically say a time frame we would like to have this, you know, completed by? Nothing of the sorts. So definitely just want to get you all's thoughts on that and how it relates to what we pretty much just read and showing the structure, the detailed accounting of it, where there is, you know, through the minutes from the secretary or through the treasurer.
It's a joke. I'm gonna go right here to the first sentence about the CBC. It says, since its establishment in 1971, as I've mentioned before, and as it states in step 10 in our steps we read every day, what year was the money taken out of the system? 1971. So again, they never intended for you to be citizens of the United States government. If you believe that you were a citizen, ask your scholarly professor in your history class, why were you given the right to vote in the 1960s? If you were a citizen during what they call the Great Depression, World War I, World War II, Korean War, why could you not vote? Why could you not go to a state college? Again, you weren't a citizen. And when they finally allowed you to be a citizen, they took the money out the system and they gave you a black caucus. Why is it federally called the black, let me say it correctly. Why is it at the federal level called the Congressional Black Caucus, but today they call you people of color or Afro-American?
Right, exactly. And then as we've pointed out in so many times, we've pointed out the other Asian caucus and I think it's a Latin American, I can't remember, or Mexican caucus. Hispanic. They Hispanic specifically have what they're going to do for their people. Ours is nothing specific, which just goes, it's just a blanket over everything that we talk about. There is nothing specific for us.
And I can say that they've done nothing, and we have proof of claim because point bulletin number 1, reforming the criminal justice system and eliminating barriers to entry. If that is your goal at the federal level, how did you have a war on drugs and a war on crime and a school to prison pipeline? How does
it progressively get worse? And how does the numbers progressively increase? Like it should be going down.
In our generation, especially in Chief Quietwater and myself generation, we're 70s babies. So we were born after they created this do nothing federal entity. We've lived through war on drugs, war on poverty, war on crime. How is that your first bulletin when they've had, this government has waged war on us?
Right.
Then if we go to expanding access to world-class education, how can you have that bulletin, but there's a such thing called school to prison pipeline?
Right.
It's a do nothing organization at federal level.
They serve no purpose at all.
Can you scroll up to the top just to see the images of some of these people?
Oh yeah.
So what they're trying to make us do is think black is a color, which we're showing black is actually a lineage, because we've went from American to Negro to colored to black to Afro-American. There's a lineage of people who have family members that if you track their birth certificates, you can see the reclassification. Mine says black. I'm born in the 70s. My mother's says colored. She's born in the 50s. My father says Negro. He was born in the 40s. It's a lineage that we're tracking, our bloodline. But you look at the people in this caucus, these people don't have our lineage. Most of them don't have our lineage. Kamala Harris they're telling you in 2022 she's Black, but her mama is from Asia. You see how they've dumbed us down?
Mm-hmm.
And her daddy from Jamaica. But they're saying she's the first Black vice president.
It's ridiculous.
What's your thoughts on this, Chief Quietwater? Chief Biko kind of put the ball on the batting.
I mean, I just said it in regards to them literally not doing anything. They're in place and have done nothing. Their bullet points of what they're supposed to do, they have not achieved any of those things.
Do you want to pull up the other two caucuses real quick just to back up what Chief Quietwater was saying, that they're not general, they have specific agendas. Whereas, you know, we get this churchy, religious type approach to business matters where we're supposed to be the moral high ground and everybody just eat off our back. It's almost like put the plate of collard greens and rice on Black people back and let everybody from around the world come and eat off your back.
Go ahead and highlight one of them. Let me see. I think it's
Asian caucus.
Yeah, Asian.
We don't even have a bulletin on our website saying purpose, mission, and goals.
Should say agenda. And that's
Or
it.
the lack of.
Yeah, nothing else. No agenda actually in it.
So if we look at the purpose, it says to ensure that legislation, Congress makes legislation, to ensure that legislation passed by the United States Congress to the greatest extent possible provides for the full participation of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and reflects concerns and needs of the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. That's it.
Not all
majority,
people.
no Black.
Specific.
This is the problem, y'all. And we've done this before. We're just reiterating. This is the problem. The Black Congressional Caucus works for everybody but you.
Yeah. Definitely agreed.
To educate other members of Congress about the history, contributions, and concerns of Asian American and Pacific Islanders. We don't even have that as a goal. We're doing that every Sunday just off the strength of being a service to our people. We're educating our people, everything we've invented. Your own Black caucus doesn't even do that.
Facts.
Show me a group of people that don't know their history, and I'm gonna show you a group of people with fucked up politics. This is why our politics fucked up.
Yeah, it's right there.
And the last one will be the Hispanic caucus, just to rub it in even more. Everybody else is itemized, has specific goals for their people. Only the Black caucus takes this churchy approach. Everybody on there has Hispanic background. Show that image again. Look at that. They're not confused about who they represent.
Right.
There's no Asians in here. No Africans.
Congressional Hispanic Caucus founded in December 1976. Legislative Service Organization of the United States House of Representatives. Today, the CHC is organized as a congressional member organization governed by the rules of the U.S. House of Representatives. The CHC addresses national and international issues and crafts policies that impact the Hispanic community. Not an other
Right.
minority groups or in other caucuses, Hispanic community. But
Or
yeah,
but yet they're going to try to convince this group of people, which I think it's, we're a little slow as a group. I think it's coming to an end now. And my last thing I'll say is everybody who wants you to continue to support a government that has no money and is not protecting you and is not giving you specific resources, pay attention to those who are trying to get you to vote this year in 2022. After a worldwide pandemic and an economic crisis worldwide, and you've got nothing as a specific group of people, watch the people who look like you, that have this skin, that are going to try to convince you to continue to support this. I hate to say it, those are your enemies.
That's definitely factual.
You agree with that, Chief Quietwater? I mean, it's a harsh reality.
I do.
At what point do we not call it what it is? Like, you want me to stay on this merry-go-round and I'm getting nothing.
Right. I definitely agree.
Chief Biko?
And most people are going to fall for it, unfortunately.
yep. Continue to vote for your own demise.
Yeah.
Voting with no, plan ahead or nothing like that. And again, it shouldn't be on the group to come up with these, have to come up with it, these plans right off the bat. This should be the responsibility of the Congressional Caucus.
Right.
What are the 5 top issues that you guys would like us to address in this, this 4-year term? Or okay, within these 2 years, what can we get accomplished out of these 5 goals? Nothing like that happens. It's all, oh, we got to jump from one thing to another.
Right.
Never, focused on one goal at a time. We ain't even got the George Floyd bill passed. Now they talking about the For the People Act, and pretty sure it's gonna be something else after that. Probably talking about some Ukraine assistance program.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, can't get our stuff passed, but again, it goes back to the leadership. They're not pushing for that stuff. They're not pushing for it. I guarantee you they're not.
At all. They're in the rooms, but they definitely are not our voice, collective voice at all.
Correct. Shoot, that's all I got to say on it. The Congressional Black Caucus full of shit, and don't listen to nothing they gotta say. These midterms, you better all stay in your ass at home. Or if they, pay you to go vote, do something that's gonna put more money in your pocket, this fiat, and then convert it to some actual constitutional money. So yeah, don't waste your time. We've been voting for what's that, since 65? So well over 60 years, or about to be 60 years. So at this point, let's try something new, guys. Let's try something,